Good morning. Cecilia will be bringing some more of these around. I did not expect this many people. I was thinking like maybe 10 for my group, so my apologies, but you will be getting these as I talk about them. So, who wants $100? Anybody? Okay, but here's the catch. Here's the catch. I need this topped out, and you're going to put this in a website or an application. And I really do have $100. I need your name. I need your address. I want your diagnoses. I need your email. I need your age. May or may not need your social security number, probably not, but I might. Some of your EHR information, information about your symptoms. Here's my caveats, 2 caveats to this. $100 is still up for it. But I'm going to share this information with people in my company. And all the ways I may use this information, including giving it to pharma, I'm not going to tell you right now. So who, and I appreciate y'all knowing me, but who, if you didn't know me, is going to do this for $100? But we do it all the time, right? I mean, really, we do. If you fill out information from someone you do not know for $100, now let's pretend it's free. People ask us to do this for free. And you're probably wondering why I ask you this. We're going to talk today about who's asking for your information, why they're asking for your information, but most importantly, how do you decide in the year of our Lord 2026 how, why, and when to do this on your terms, leaving the legacy you want to leave behind. And I know I talked to you guys yesterday about him, so I won't chew my cabbage twice, but this is my daddy. This is why I'm talking about this right now. You can see he's playing the guitar, and what you probably may not be able to see is the oxygen tubes coming from his mouth. My daddy did answer these surveys. And my daddy left a legacy behind of information that's going to help save my life. It took 30 minutes to complete these surveys. My dad couldn't walk to the bathroom by himself in 30 minutes. And he was a very dignified man. Obviously, he had served lots of people with dignity. And here's a man who can't go pee by himself. And we're asking him for 30 minutes of his time that he could have spent talking to me, talking to his grandkids, playing the guitar, learning my favorite songs. And he did that to help me one day. So this is my personal why. Now I'm going to really talk about a professional why, because my feelings, although they're very important to a lot of people, they don't matter to the FDA. And I'm kind of cool with that at this point, because my feelings aren't leading to the not getting a placebo. And I know y'all may not can see this because if you're like me, I didn't bring my bifocals, but I can send these slides out. This is public information that patient preference and registry data can and does lead to FDA, rare disease, and patient-focused regulatory policy if it's done right. Well, how do I know that? Because it's been done before. I worked in neuro, and I can imagine y'all with this accent, you probably wouldn't have given me much street cred. I don't either. So I'm not going to say it in my words. I'm going to say it in their words. How did they do this? They used information from people like us, packaged in the right way, to inform drug development. And it's pretty simple. The FDA does issue guidelines, and I'm going to point out the bottom. They're not picking on us. I pointed this out yesterday. Other places have standards on how we collect information, and we demand that. Court, when your attorney goes to court, we're not going to let a cop write down on a napkin what you did and submit it to the courts. We demand that they have a certain form that they use. that they sign it a certain way. Some places they even make you use a certain color. So why should we make the FDA any different? We don't. And they give us pretty clear guidelines on how data must be collected. Integrity. It's collected in a confidential manner that is secure and HIPAA compliant. It's protecting you. And risk proportionate monitoring. And this is a pretty important slide to me because what's the first thing y'all notice, as a human, about an IRB? Because we're talking about it has to be protected, and it has to be protected by a review board. So what's the first thing you notice? In 1947, what kind of atrocities happened around that time? Nazi Germany, where they did experiments on people that really did push the needle forward, but to what cost? They didn't consent, they didn't deserve it, should not have happened. The next thing, of course, NIH clinical trials, we'll ignore that. An obedience study. Then the next thing, the syphilis study on our native population. So it's super important as humans, I think, to make sure that any information that's collected, it's done right by our people, because you don't ever know what's going to happen next. When you're collecting pregnancy information and hormone information from women, you don't know what's going down policy-wise. And then here's another reason it's important to me. The FDA says so. They use it in patient-focused drug development guidance, and there's pretty much, I wrote the 4 guidance. Y'all can read it. I'm telling you, it reads like VCR instructions, though. But this is the main 4 that we're getting out of it. And methods of collecting patient experience data that are accurate and representative of the intended patient population. So if we do this right, they're going to listen. And Cecilia's handing this out to you right now, and this is the most important part to me, because most of us, if not all of us, are capable of making decisions ourselves about what we do with our information and where it goes. So the first thing is, who's asking and why? You wouldn't just walk up to somebody on the street and say, hey, what's your name? Where do you live? Tell me your diagnosis. Ooh, can you tell me more about that? Give me some EHR data. Who are you? So the first people are patient advocacy groups, and Ms. Carroll's doing this right now. She's doing a survey to understand your needs, and that's valid. You guys need to be heard, and she's a trusted voice. Then researchers and universities, they study. They're going to be asking y'all questions too. Then pharmaceutical companies, they want to develop treatments for us. And then regulators do it for health, efficacy, and safety. And then this is on the first page. If you look, this is how the information should go. It should start with you, and then you decide. Whoever reads, y'all read the consent forms at HIPAA, at the doctor's office. Would you like to reread your HIPAA and have a copy? No. They could be telling us they're going to put us on a billboard for who knows what. I'm guilty too. But if you consent to it, you consented to it. No takesy-backsies. Unless there's a clause in it saying you could takesy-backsies. You do have the right to be forgotten. Then you consent. They start collecting information. It should be stored securely, should be analyzed, and then you guys should know what came out of it. You should never give someone information and not have an outcome. Why? What's in it for you? What was in it for my dad? Why should he spend 30 minutes of his time answering information if nothing's going to come out of it for him or his children? And then a little bit, this is just an overview about how researchers do develop new treatments. So it actually starts with you all. It starts with what information you're willing to share and what information they can get. I think we all know in the 15 minutes we're seeing our doctors, as fantastic as they are, they're not capturing everything about us. And so on the back page, this is just a really quick before you click. We're grown-ups. Figure out what they're asking for. Your contact info, survey questionnaires, health information, and then medical records, and then stop and think about what they need to get that information. You can give it. Again, I still have my $100. If anybody now is still willing to give me all of that information on you, now you can't just verbally tell this to me. You have to write it down. If you're still willing to give that to me for $100, I'm willing to give you $100. But I don't really see if you understand what someone could do with it, why you would. You're worth so much more than $100. So here are 6 questions that our consortium came up with. There's 16, 17 groups in our consortium right now. And this isn't me coming up with these questions. This isn't Carol coming up with these questions. This isn't Cecilia coming up with these questions, although they are a part of our consortia. These are a bunch of rare disease groups coming together and saying, we want our patients to understand that they need to ask who is collecting your information. Where is it going to be stored? Who's going to have access? That's pretty important. In this day and age, I think it's extremely important to know who has access. Will my name be removed? Can I delete my information later? And then most importantly to me, how is this going to be used? Are you going to make my poor dad that's hooked up to oxygen answer questions for 30 minutes if it's going nowhere? Why? And so I guess my final call to action is really yours. Do research right. Hold people accountable for these standards. The FDA does. Unfortunately, for a lot of rare disease patients, if you have a medication that's pulled off the market, you're only 5% of rare disease patients that even have a treatment in the pipeline. We can't risk one single treatment coming off for us. It feels like a backward step. We can't risk having placebo. That's awful. No one in their right mind is going to take a sugar pill. I mean, I'm not. I love all y'all, but if you told me, hey, this is not going to do anything for you, you're going to have to drive 4 hours to get a sugar pill, no. So hold people accountable. When they ask you for information, ask all those questions. It's your information. You wouldn't give it to just anyone on the street. So that's my only call to action. And I have tons of time for questions because, again, I thought this was going to be like 9 people, and it's like 30. So if you have any questions, I may or may not have answers. I mean, yeah, I kind of drew it up pretty succinctly. So this is yours. And if y'all want to join us in asking these questions, go to Ms. Carol, go to Cecilia, go to Brenda, go to anybody. I'm not a PBC expert. I just look across disorders. Yes,
I had one question. On your slide, initially, you listed one data point that might be requested was the Social Security number. In your mind, is there any reason why any of these research studies or questionnaires should ask for someone's Social Security number?
Absolutely.
I mean, I saw other people sort of going, uh-oh.
Absolutely. And not only in my mind should they not, there's something called the CRID. It's called a Clinical Research ID. It was developed by a rare disease patient who has PBC. And oh my gosh, I hate to say I've never been so glad to see somebody in a space. We worked together in neurology, and I was like, Jerry, what are you doing here? He said, I have PBC. And he developed the Clinical Research ID. It's an online social security number of sorts. You create yourself and own yourself. So if you say, hey, I don't even want to give you my name, here's my CRID ID, you can even not give them your name. There is never a reason someone should ask for your social. That's my opinion.
Okay. Hello? Okay. Question. One of our groups posted on the app and it asked for symptoms, but they didn't tell us what it was for. How do we find out about it?
Ask them. I absolutely. If it's a group, somebody posting on your app, the first thing I always do is I go to their website. I look up their website. I scroll down and I look to see who owns it. I call the number. Hey, how'd you get and my first question too is how'd you get my email address? You didn't just I'm a rare disease patient. You didn't just get my email address. So I need to know who gave you my number. I think not only would I ask them who's asking, I ask you how you got my email and why you're asking. And if I'm asking, I mean, I'd be like, oh yeah, like Miss Carol's doing something right now for you guys to do market research to understand what you all need and what your needs are. That's a very valid reason for collecting information, and she would have zero issue. My guess is Miss Carol would be like, oh yeah, this is what we're doing. Like, oh.
My whole life, working with medical institutions and other institutions, they've always asked for a social security number, and that was your only way to ID you. Today, how do we protect us from someone saying, hey, I'm from PBC such and such, and I need your information in order to validate who you are? I would say don't give it to them. So I just don't know. I guess you're not in your head, and you answered my question. So if PBC is calling you, it ain't PBC.
It ain't, yeah. Miss Carol will reach out. I mean, you all know her email address. I have not really ever seen her, and if I would immediately call, because this actually happened at my last job. It was through Vanderbilt, and they called one of our research assistants and said, hey, I'm Kristin. I need the files for all the patients. It was a text. I need the files for the patients. And she immediately called me and she's like, Kristin? And I mean, spamming happens. That's why we really do have to be careful. I would never, I absolutely 100% agree with you. I would never, just like with banking, you wouldn't trust a bank to say, oh yeah, like, verify the last 4 of your social. Nope. My husband would. He's done it like 400 times, and he also has an apartment in California we're trying to get rid of right now because he keeps giving out his information. So I do learn from experience, I swear. But to your point, don't ever verify who you are. This is very, very sensitive information you guys are giving out. The CRID Research ID, and actually, thecrid.org, and Cecilia has a link to it. The coolest thing I've seen about the CRID, and it's not just the fact that it takes care of your information, but when we publish your CRID numbers in neuro. So let's say that I, Kristin Hatcher, decide that I'm going to give you guys my information. I give you my CRID ID. They can use this CRID ID, and when they eventually publish these papers, you can look and see, oh my gosh, like, I was a part of this paper. No one ever knows it but you, unless you want people to know. It's one of the coolest things I've really been a part of as far as a wraparound research, because I'm interested in what do you do with my information? Like, eventually, where does this land? And it not only protects you, it's your CRID ID, and nobody knows it's you but you. You get to follow it through its natural history and see where you land, see where your research mattered, and your kids could too, which I think is really neat. What a legacy to leave behind. And if you guys want any more information, Dr. Duenas, Cecilia has probably, bless her heart, listened to this more than she'd ever like to, and Miss Carol against her will every Tuesday. And if anyone wants to be, if you guys want to meet Jerry, a really cool PBC guy from Ireland, let me know too. He is he's not just a great researcher, he's a great friend. And I'd love to introduce you. And then you're going to get put in story prison about the CRID. Well, thanks, y'all. I do have to say, I've got to go. I've got to go home. But after meeting the PBC family, I can see why you guys travel all this way. I look forward to next year, and I hope I'm invited back. Bye, guys.